Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. And welcome to the show, everybody. You know, Michelle, it's great to have you here, and I'm glad that you're here for this show because we had a guest. His name is Sig Muller, and he died. And then he got up again. It was pretty amazing that he did all that. People are tuning in going, huh? What? Huh? Well, we're going to tell his story in just a moment. Would you like to introduce him, my friend?
I would love to. Today we have Sig Muller joining us in on the show to share a story that we have yet to hear. So thank you for being here, Sig, and how are you today?
I'm fantastic. Great to be with you.
And, you know, when you have a moment in time, when something happens in your life that is unique and different and is life-changing, would you say that what happened to you on August 23rd of 2024 was life-changing?
Oh, without a doubt. It's 35 weeks ago tomorrow, and I will forever know how many weeks it has been. 244 days to today.
And I got to ask you, what does it feel like? Because you hear it all the time, but what does it feel like to have sudden cardiac arrest? Did you even know?
No. So big difference between sudden cardiac arrest and a heart attack. And I think people usually think of a heart attack. A heart attack is a plumbing problem. Something's clogged, something's not flowing right. It can be very painful. Sudden cardiac arrest is full stop, flatline. So I felt nothing. I was fortunate. A good friend of mine kind of realized maybe I didn't look super good. He'd walked around and he caught me and laid me on the ground. But sudden cardiac arrest is flatline, so you don't really feel anything in the moment.
How long were you flatlined before medical science, I assume it was medical science, was able to bring you back? Either that or an angel.
Yeah, I think it was an angel. I think it was friends and family. I think it was the great care team, the first responders that showed up. A lot of people took care of me when I couldn't take care of myself. I was dead for 8 minutes, and the odds of living through that are about 8%. And the odds of me being physically and mentally okay after being down that long are less than 1%. I think some people might still question if I'm, all there mentally, but most people think I am.
I think you're more than all there mentally, because that became a moment in time for you where you made some monumental, well, I don't know if they're monumental shifts in your life, but you did make some changes based upon the fact that you were dead for 8 minutes.
No question. And Kevin, all of us have heart-stopping moments in our life. Mine involved an ambulance, a defibrillator, but for all of us, we have things that stop us in our tracks, give us pause, make us reevaluate our priorities and think about it. And it could be a call from a loved one. It could be starting a new career. And there's a whole host of things, right? That for each of us, very personal, our heart-stopping moments. They cause us to reevaluate where we're at. And for me, that was the cardiac arrest.
That must have been for your friends and family that were in and around you at that moment in time. That must have been a terribly difficult moment for them as well.
Yeah, they started on the golf course. Burl Oaks, just west of Lake Minnetonka, for people that are familiar with the Twin Cities in Minnesota. I was with 11 really good friends, all of whom I started work with at General Mills in 1994, 1995, 30 years before. If I don't meet those people on that day, I don't know where I am when I have my cardiac arrest. I recognized probably the golf course, not the best place to have a cardiac arrest, as though I had a choice. And they did have a defibrillator there. So that was great, because when you have a cardiac arrest, that's the only thing that will restart your heart. CPR is awesome. It helps prolong the window in which you can be mentally okay and revived. So I encourage everybody to do CPR, but the only thing that'll restart your heart is a defibrillator. So we golfed, had a great day. I'm not a good golfer, but I had a lot of fun. And then we went with the same group of people, now with a bigger group, spouses, significant others, family, to South St. Paul. So now I was close to Regents Hospital, which is where I eventually wound up. And we were outside, sitting at a high top bar at a pool at a friend's house. And that's where I had my sudden cardiac arrest, right there.
Did you ever happen to find out what caused it?
No, they oftentimes don't know with a cardiac arrest. They were able to tell me, hey, my plumbing's great. It wasn't a heart attack. You don't have high cholesterol. You don't need a stent or bypass, any of those types of things. I do have right here a fancy little thing called an implantable cardio defibrillator in me now, which is an insurance device. So if my heart does a funky rhythm, it has an opportunity to pace it. Or if it were to stop again, it will shock it back into rhythm. So that's my new fancy bionic part of Sig.
Well, I'm so glad, Sig, that they have that for you. But I have a really, really important question to ask you because you worked for General Mills. What was your favorite cereal?
And I also worked at Ben & Jerry's. In fact, I started all the Ben & Jerry's in the Twin Cities area. And I used to always have people say, what's your favorite ice cream? And I had to say, when they asked me what my favorite ice cream was, a lot of people like the Cherry Garcia, Chunky Monkey, things like that. I'd say it's like someone asks you, who's your favorite child? Who's your favorite kid? You can't pick one because they all have different reasons they're pretty good. But General Mills had a lot of wonderful cereals, right? Wheaties. In fact, the couple that gave me CPR at their home, his name was Paul, his wife Kim. I worked with Paul at General Mills, right? Everybody was from General Mills. And Paul actually ran Wheaties for a chunk of time. So I think in his honor, I'd have to say Wheaties. But it may not be the best tasting, but it's, got a good sports theme. And champions, it's about champions. But Trix, Lucky Charms, Cheerios, Heart Health, a lot of good ones that I could pick.
Yes, indeed. Wow. And Wheaties was the one that they had different athletes on the cover.
Right.
So did you have an opportunity to meet any like Michael Jordan or Lou Alcindor or any of those guys?
A few folks. Paul met them all. In fact, he shared, golfing with some pretty famous people. At that time when Paul was working the brand, worked on our Hispanic marketing. So had the opportunity to get Oscar De La Hoya on the Wheaties box. If people know boxing, the Golden Boy, I think was his nickname. So I had an opportunity to meet him. And then some famous swimmers, Amy Van Dyke and some others. So
that's really cool. That's really cool. And so now that you have, and to recap, if you're just joining us, Sig Muller is our guest, and he went through a sudden cardiac arrest not even a year ago, and he is doing well now, and he's taken a different attitude, I think, a little bit. But tell us how when you came. Well, I gotta ask you, what's the first thing that you said when you woke up and you said, "Wait a minute, I was dead"?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first thing I said, and I said it thousands of times, Kevin, was, "You are the world's best," and I'll tell you the story and why. I had anterograde amnesia in the hospital, and what that means is you can't form new memories. So I remembered everyone. I remember golfing. I remember everyone's name and my whole life before my sudden cardiac arrest. But if I met you in that hospital the first 2.5, 3 days, I wouldn't remember your name. I wouldn't remember talking to you. If you told me I'd had a cardiac arrest, I wouldn't remember that. It was nothing. So if Rochelle was my phlebotomist, right? And Rochelle, you were a very good phlebotomist. You were coming in continually to my room to draw blood about every hour. I've heard all this. These are not my memories. These are the stories I've heard from family, friends, and caregivers that were there those 2.5 days to share with me what was happening. You draw my blood. I'd say, "Hi, what's your name?" You'd say, "Rochelle, I'm here to draw your blood." And I would tell you, "You are the world's best." And I'd probably say it 5 or 6 times. "You were very, very good at drawing my blood." You'd finish, and I'd tell you again as you're going out the door, "You are the world's best," multiple times. It was my own personal Groundhog Day. You'd come back an hour later, 2 hours later, whatever it was, and I'd ask you your name again. You'd tell me, and I'd tell you you were the world's best. I needed people to be their world's best for me. I was on rinse, repeat. I kept doing it again and again and again, no matter who it was. The doctor, the janitors, the nurse, my friends, my family. I had a good friend come in and pray with me. And he asked if he could pray with me. And I said, sure. And again, I don't know that I really remember that. It was maybe one of my first memories. And we prayed together. And I told him, "You're the world's best." One of my favorite stories, and I hope it's okay for your audience here, is it was probably day 2. And, I was talking to people just like I am now. I just didn't remember anything. And this was, I was a Division I swimmer, All-American in high school. And this was the first time in my life I couldn't take care of myself. I couldn't do anything for myself. So the nurse came in to help me go to the bathroom. She said, "Sig, do you have to go to the bathroom?" I said, "I think so. You are the world's best." And she proceeded to help me take a big poop. And, I finished, and she wipes me, and I look up at her with gratitude, and I tell her that was the world's best wipe.
Followed by the world's best poop.
Well, then apparently, and I heard this from my sister, who, God bless her, she can give testament to this story, right? She witnessed it. Then I looked around, apparently with great pride and satisfaction, and said to anyone within earshot, that was the world's best poop. So I was applying it to everything. And, I looked back, and Kevin, you talked about having a new attitude and how it resets and changes things. And I thought a lot about, why am I here? Why am I still alive in the following weeks and months? What's my purpose? What's my mission? And why did I say this crazy thing, "You are the world's best," to every single person? And by the way, I said one other phrase too. If we have time, I can get into that. But the second phrase I said, and then I'll tell you why I said you are the world's best. The second phrase I said to everyone was, "Don't give me clopidogrel." Clopidogrel is Plavix. Right? A lot of people know Plavix. You might be on it if you have a heart problem. It's a drug they can give you after a heart attack or cardiac arrest. And keep in mind, I don't know what's even happened to me. I just know I'm kind of messed up. I had worked, and we'll get into it later probably. This I think of as a guardian angel moment. I had worked at Mayo Clinic 10 years before. And while I was there, Mayo Clinic helped start a pharmacogenomic company. How do your drugs interact with your genes? How do those two things work together? Do you metabolize this drug like a normal person, or super fast, or you don't metabolize it at all? I had learned, because I took the test 10 years before, I didn't metabolize clopidogrel. I didn't metabolize it. And in fact, if you're to give it to someone who metabolized it like me, all of a sudden the odds of another heart event go up 3 to 4 times more. So something in the back of my mind made me say that, again, thousands and thousands of times to everyone who came in the room. Don't give me clopidogrel. And when I woke up and finally remembered one of my first memories, I looked down at the big whiteboard at the end of the bed, right on the wall, where they say, "This is Sig, he weighs this much," and et cetera, et cetera. My sister had written on the whiteboard, giant letters, "Clopidogrel allergy," which isn't exactly right. But saying it 1,000 times was apparently enough, and people got the point not to give me clopidogrel. And there was something just, in my unconscious mind that made me say that. So
Wow.
why did go ahead?
I was just going to say, by the way, we're talking with Sig Muller or Muller. I couldn't say procredible. What did you call it?
Clopidogrel.
I actually had no shot at that. They'd have given me that, and I'd be dead in a minute.
It's a tongue twister.
I couldn't pronounce it. Rochelle, we need to take a quick break. And by the way, go to his website, which is betheworldsbest.com. And we are going to return more with Sig in just a moment. You have got an incredible story. And when we come back, I'm going to ask you about those 8 minutes. If you have any recurring memories, or did you go someplace else, or did you just become somebody different when you woke up? Rochelle is here, I'm here, Sig is here, and we'll be right back right after this. At 67 years young, I never thought I'd feel this good again. But thanks to Purium's Ultimate Transformation Lifestyle, to date, I've lost 37 pounds and gained energy, confidence, and a whole new outlook on life. This isn't a diet. Purium is a complete lifestyle change, giving me all the natural, organic, nutrition-packed superfoods that fuel my body, crush my cravings, and help me burn fat naturally without starving myself. No gimmicks, no guesswork, just a simple, proven system that works. Superfood shakes, detox support, and real results. If I can do this at 67, imagine what you can do. It's your time to feel better, look better, and live better with Purium. Let's do it now, and let's do it together. Go to www.positivetalkradio.net and click on the Transform You to get started. That's positivetalkradio.net. Transform You. And welcome back to Positive. I love the fact that Sig is dancing, Rochelle's dancing, and I'm just sitting here. Anyway, Rochelle, before I ask him about the famous 8 minutes, do you have any questions you'd like to ask him?
Yes, I would just love to ask. So you mentioned the hospital. I'll kind of go back to that before we do the 8 minutes. Were there ever times that you found yourself frustrated, or out of nowhere, why am I in the hospital? Was that kind of a recurring thing, or did you just kind of settle with the idea of you knew you were in the hospital for some reason, but not exactly why?
No, when I got to the hospital, I had two friends come with me, Paul, who gave me CPR, and another good friend, Bart. And I would later learn, weeks later, I said, hey, why'd you guys come with me? And they said, pretty simple. You weren't going to die alone. It was not your day to die, and we love you. Pretty awesome. But the frustration, again, the first 3 days, 2.5 days, I don't remember. So I heard about it from others. So I was intubated when I got to the hospital, and my glasses had been lost. And I don't know about your vision, Kevin. I see you in your glasses there. My vision's like 1200. So I am pretty darn blind if I don't have my glasses on. So I think combination of being intubated, not having my glasses made me a little crazy. I apparently tried to pull the intubation tube out on my own and tell everybody I was fine. I was fine. I'm going to go home. I'm good. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Sig, that you were dead 20 minutes ago, and now you want to go home.
I'm good. I'm telling you, I'm good. World's best. I'm already recovered. But I think the positive there is I was fighting.
Yeah.
I was fighting. And my sister realized part of my frustration, part of my attitude may have been I couldn't see anything. So not only was I in the hospital, but I couldn't see 5 feet across the room who was there without my glasses. So one of her first tasks was, where are his glasses? And I don't remember who had them or found them, but someone got my glasses. They put them on my face. I don't even know if at that point I could move my arm. So apparently I could, because I was trying to rip out the intubation. But they found my glasses and they put them on me. And I think that helped calm me down and make me less frustrated, because I could now see, like, I wouldn't remember 5 minutes later what somebody told me, but I could. I'm in a hospital. I'm surrounded by doctors and nurses. I'm surrounded by family, and again, an hour later, I'm not going to remember who was the family that was there or anything else, but I could see with my own eyes what was going on and that people were taking care of me. And I think that helped calm me down.
Yeah.
And I kept fighting, but I turned that into some positive energy, the will to live.
Yeah, and thank God, because now we have you on Positive Talk Radio. What better thing?
Yeah, I love it.
Exactly.
So,
And by the way, I want to give a shout out to your sister. Sounds like she was there for you for the entire time.
She was I think I was almost 7 days in the ICU, and she wasn't there 24/7. No one can be, but pretty darn close. She was captain of the ship when everyone else, everyone, I mean, pretty grim, right? Pretty disturbing, worrying. My two sons were there, and my eldest son is a second-year med student now in Billings, Montana. People are worried that my new mental state is going to be this not remembering things. Is that going to be my permanent vegetative state? And so Maria was there with my son, making sure I got the best care and making decisions, that ultimately would, in combination with my caregivers, lead to me being okay.
Well, we are so glad that you are okay. And I want to talk a little bit, and I know that you, in our pre-conversation, if memory serves me correctly, you don't have any specific memories of what happened during that 8-minute time frame, but a lot of NDEs, which are near-death experiences, which is what you had, do have some experiences on the other side of talking to maybe friends and family or a guide or something like that. And am I correct in remembering that you didn't have any of that happen?
I didn't. It's 8 minutes of my life followed by 2 to 3 days that is forgotten forever.
But I would like to challenge it this way, if I could, please, because I've been thinking about this since we had our meeting, and that is, just because you didn't remember, that didn't mean it didn't happen, because the changes that you've made in your life since that time have been huge, and they've been impactful, and including, I'm willing to bet, before August 23rd, 2024, there was no website that said "be the world's best." Am I correct in that?
There wasn't, and in fact, laying in the hospital bed, when I was saying, "You are the world's best" to everyone, I didn't know I was going to become a transformational speaker. I didn't know I was going to write a book. I didn't know my new mission was to help others be the world's best version of themselves. I knew none of that. So I wasn't rehearsing in the mirror, my speeches or anything like that. I think, Kevin, to your point, I was touched by my guardian angels. And I think there's a number of moments in my life, things happen for a reason. They don't happen by accident. I had a good friend call them God incidences, that helped me through life. And you don't recognize those in the moment. You're just living life. But in the ensuing months after, Kevin, I'm putting together, while I didn't remember those 8 minutes, I do think something transformational happened to me during those 8 minutes. And I reflected on the whole, why am I here? What is my mission? And putting together the pieces, I learned from the doctors that the fact that I had swum, Division I, really good, trained my body hypoxically to deal with less oxygen, that my body had carried that probably through life. And the fact that I was mentally okay and physically going to be okay was probably due to that training. And when I trained as a young kid, I swam in the Swim for Heart marathon, ironically, probably 8 to 10 times, raising money for the Heart Association. So I just swam growing up. It's what I did. But there was a reason. for that happening in my life at that point in time that helped me survive and now thrive after the event. I look back on the guys from General Mills. I left General Mills to go to a company called Survival Inc. And Survival Inc.'s one of the companies that pioneered automated external defibrillators. So before that, defibrillators were only in hospitals and only in ambulances. Now we see them in our schools, the golf courses, airplanes, they're everywhere. And that's the key to restarting your heart. So I left General Mills to go to work at this company in business development and marketing. We helped put the first defibrillators in airplanes, on golf courses, in police cars, in fire departments, in companies. Pretty amazing. Again, I don't think that's an accident.
So ultimately, you may have saved yourself.
Yeah. It at least gave me some knowledge and awareness of the space. It was funny, and I'll tell you a couple more guide incident stories. But first, so the Medtronic rep came into my room and said, "Sig, you're going to get an implantable cardio defibrillator." I think that was on day 4, and started to tell me all about it. I proceeded to ask him some kind of crazy questions that he said, "No one ever asks me this." I said, "So what's the waveform of the shock in the device?" Well, it was a biphasic wave. All right, that's good. I knew about biphasic. What's the delivered energy? 40 joules. Cool. The old defibrillators used to do like 360 joules, do a lot more heart damage. 40 joules is going to minimize the damage to the heart. So again, I'm like, cool, that's great. And, we talked about some other things. And he looks at me and he goes, "Who are you? And why are you asking me these questions?" The only reason I was able to was because I'd worked at this defibrillator company 25 years before, that I had this knowledge. And I couldn't tell you what makes a good I-seat implantable cardio defibrillator or not. I know, but it's an awesome company. But I don't know what the specs are, anything about it. But having that data, I think, reassured me and made me feel good. So then I said to the Medtronic rep as he started to leave the room, "Thanks for asking my questions. You're the world's best." I could remember I was saying it, but I was unaware that I continually was saying this. But I have only one important question to ask. It's the most important question. I said, "Can I go scuba diving after you put this in?" I've been on over 1,000 scuba dives all around the world. It's a real passion of mine, the water. And he looked at me and said, "I don't know. No one's ever asked me that, but I'll check." So he came back later that afternoon and he said, "I have the answer. It's contraindicated," right? Meaning no. Fancy way, I think the medical world says no, it's contraindicated. And I think it's contraindicated like 5 different times. And I said, "Okay, I hear you. It's not a good idea. And if I were to go underwater, it might shock me and I'll drown. I'm okay with taking that risk. Can the device, from a pressure standpoint, right, when you're diving underwater, 2 atmospheres, 3 atmospheres pressure, will the device be okay?" He said, "Well, again, it's contraindicated, but you can go up to 100 feet and the device will be fine." And I said, "All right, fantastic. Let's go ahead and put it in." No, I was getting it regardless, right?
You had no choice.
It was just a bonus that I got the news. Although contraindicated, they were not recommending it. I could do it.
And you're right. As we go through life, a lot of interesting things happen to us, and there are lots of God moments or universal moments that happen to all of us. And I'm really glad that even though you didn't have one of those static, of course you couldn't remember anything either. So you may have had it and then you couldn't remember it, and then you were moving forward with it in any event.
Yeah.
So, but Rochelle, I know you have a thought and a question.
I do, but we need to take a break. With that said, we will take a break. But when we come back, Sig, I have to ask you, you mentioned that 4th day is when you got that defibrillator, which I think is insane because that's the day you started to remember things. So I kind of want to talk about that day and what it was like for you to start remembering things and some of your first big memories. So Can we do that, Kevin?
Absolutely. Besides, of course, the big poop. And if you want to hear more about that, you're going to have to listen to the first part of the show. But in any event, we need to take a break, and we'll be right back.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. As you gather with family and friends who love and support you, look closer. There are youth right in your community who don't have the home, warmth, and healing you have. So look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. And for 50 years, Covenant House has worked relentlessly to keep them safe and protected. Tonight, 2,000 young people will sleep safely in a Covenant House bed. And tomorrow, they will wake up surrounded by love. They get clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In sites across America to help them fulfill the great promise of their lives. So look closer at Covenant House. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
And welcome back to Positive. I should have Rochelle do this. Go ahead, Rochelle.
Welcome back to Positive Talk Radio with the one and only Kevin McDonald and myself. And today we have Sig Muller, who is here to share his near-death experience and all the above for what that was like, because everybody has their reason for it. And I love how you mentioned that it doesn't have to be such an extreme thing to relate to other people. They may go through something that isn't just heart-stopping, but damn near feels like it. So following with my question of the fourth day, when you started to remember things and had memories come back, what was that day like?
Yeah, I was sort of rediscovering things. I remember that whiteboard with the no clopidogrel. I remember my friend coming in and praying with me, and he prayed the Our Father with me. I remember my sister, I don't know if it was the night before and I learned about it, or it was actually that day, she brought in lunch for all the caregivers. It's pretty cool. Her way of saying, thank you, you're the world's best, take really good care of my brother, right? And I think I had a lot of fear and trepidation as to, am I going to be okay? What path is this going to take? And it was when, I was first told, hey, you've been saying these two crazy things all the time. You are the world's best. And in the following weeks and months, I had to come to grips with the path to recovery and why I was here. And I reflected on, why did I say that? And the conclusion I came to was really, I think I said you're the world's best for a few reasons. It was my fancy way of saying, thank you. You're fantastic. You're awesome. That's great. I appreciate you. I just chose the words, you're the world's best, to express it. I think the second reason was I knew I was pretty messed up. I'd been on sports teams, leading teams at work, and, motivation's a big part of that. And I had something click inside me that said, I need to motivate people, because I needed the surgeon who was going to implant the ICD to be the world's best. I needed the nurse, the friends, the family. I needed everyone. I needed myself to show up and be the world's best and fight. But whoever was there, I became my own hype man, my own motivation, myself and others. So that people would, when you hear someone say that, you're the world's best, or thank you, or that's great, or that's fantastic, it changes your belief system a little bit, just a little bit, right? It makes you realize, yeah, you know what? I am. It's a nice thing to hear. And I think the final reason was, too often in life, we hear all the negatives, what's happening bad in the world. You're not good enough. You can't, in fact, disturbingly, about 3/4 of the thoughts we have every day, and the average person has 6,000 to 60,000 thoughts a day. About 3/4 of those thoughts are negative thoughts. And 90% of those thoughts are repetitive. So what a horrible space. So all of us can benefit from some good, positive thinking to replace some of those negative thoughts and start to shift our mindset to a more positive one. And I think that's why I said it. And it's what led to my new mission in believing that, each one of us has the power, capacity, and talent to be the world's best version of ourselves. It means something different to all of us. We all have that within us. And I'm here to help organizations and people and teams with the tools and resources to be able to do that.
That's amazing.
This is the first time this has ever happened to me on this show. Have you ever had a deja vu moment?
Yeah.
I just had one. That we were just having this interview, and I'm told that you had the 8-minute sudden cardiac death as part of the plan for who you really are and where you were really going to go and how your life was going to play out and how Be the World's Best was going to become an international best brand.
Yeah.
I hope that makes some kind of sense to somebody, because that's how I feel.
Yeah. A couple other things happened, the God incidences, that I think are reflective of that, Kevin. One was 2 weeks before my cardiac arrest, someone put together a reunion of Survivalink, the company that pioneered AEDs. So 2 weeks before my cardiac arrest, we're together celebrating the thousands, tens of thousands of lives we've helped save. We're high-fiving, we're chest bumping, celebrating. So when I showed up at golf the day of the cardiac arrest, everyone's catching up. Half the guys are in from out of town, half the guys live in town, and we're just shooting the breeze. These are people that were at the birth of my boys, in the hospital. We invented a thing called baby showers for the guys, because I think we were jealous of the women having baby showers. Ours consisted of going out on a boat on Lake Minnetonka, and no fishing, but having a lot of fun, probably with some beer and other things. And we're catching up. Your kids graduated from college. You're an empty nester now. What's that like? What have you been up to, Sig? And I share. You guys remember when I left General Mills, I went to that Survivalink company that pioneered AEDs. Oh, okay. Interesting. I said that to the people that, were going to give me CPR later that day. How about that? Yeah.
It's like a prep. I'm just prepping you.
You guys get ready. You're going to be doing CPR on me.
It is remarkable when you can look back at your life in totality and you can see how all of these things happened for a reason, and the experiences that you have gotten or have had, both good and those that are not so good, have been there for a reason. And it's all because as your life continues to evolve, and the wake-up call that you received to do the website and the book and everything that you're doing is really so important. Now, I wanted to ask you, though, do you feel, because this is still a relatively recent event, do you feel like you have PTSD or anything around that? And are you concerned about passing on?
For sure. And I'll tell you how I coped with it in a few ways. So again, 41 days, I think this was before my sudden cardiac arrest, I was visiting my son in Montana, and he took me fly fishing with his pastor. We're floating on, one of the world's best fly fishing. I'm a rookie, but he was my Sherpa, and the pastor was an expert too, with fly fishing for the day. And the pastor says to the two of us, "Hey, have you guys ever heard of the book or the podcast 4,000 Weeks? No. Well, 4,000 weeks is how long you have to live when you're born. It's about 80 years. And I'm thinking in my mind, I didn't say it out loud. Hey, man, I'm fly fishing with my son. I don't need to be preached to. Kept that to myself. He just shared a little bit about the book, and it went in one ear, out the other. Didn't think anything about it. But then when I'm recovering, Kevin, I'm thinking, I don't know if I'm going to live a day, a week, a year. I'm 59 now. My father's 95. 95. Maybe I'll live to be 95. But a good friend of mine said it can feel like a bullet's chasing you. And you're not sure if and when that bullet's going to hit you. We're all going to die at some point. But is it going to be another unexpected thing? And I had to figure out how to deal with that. And so as I was reflecting afterwards on what am I going to do? What's my mission? I said, you know what? I need to put a stake in the ground because I have a choice to live in fear. I have a choice to curl up in my home, stop living life, or to get after it and go all in on what was starting to crystallize as my new mission to help others, through my keynote speaking and book and everything else to be the world's best version of themselves. And the stake in the ground, I said, was I'm going to live 1,000 weeks and I'm going to act and behave as though I'm going to live 1,000 weeks. 1,000 weeks is 20 years. So 20 years is, I'll be 79. And if I can make a difference in this world for 20 years, that'd be pretty awesome. But think about 20 years. That's 20 summers, 20 Christmases, 20 Easters. We just had one. Whatever your jam is, if it's an annual thing, each one of those 20 years is 5%. 5%. Puts it in a little bit different perspective and sense of urgency. So that was part of my dealing with PTSD. The other thing is I started cardiophysical therapy. So I go and I exercise in front of a team of caregivers with a group of other people who had similar circumstances to mine. And I have a 3-lead EKG put on me to monitor my heart. They're taking my blood pressure. I get on the treadmill. I get on the bicycle. I get on the rowing machine. And I get a full digital readout of my heart and report. And, hey, I did that. I'm okay. It still worked. And this is how hard I worked. And, it was supervised. So that data helped reinforce that I'm okay. I did that and I can do more. So all that together was super helpful. I took the 5% to another level. And this is one of the things I talk about in my book. You think about time and how we spend our time every day. I'm going to reach down and check my cell phone now. Well, average person checks their cell phone 205 times a day. 205 times a day. The average person spends over 2 hours on social media, over 3 hours watching TV, 19 hours a week worrying at work, 19 hours a week worrying at work. And if you have children, 75% of the time you're ever going to have with your child is gone by the time they're 12. 90% of the time you're going to have with your child is gone by the time they're 18. So ask yourself, how are you spending every day? Are you spending it on the things that matter, the things that are important, the things that are going to make a difference? 5% of every day, 5% of 24 hours is 72 minutes. 72 minutes. If you sleep, maybe you're only awake 14 hours. 5% of 14 hours is 42 minutes. Can you spend 5% a day playing with your kid, working out at the gym? The things that are really a priority and going to make a difference. And what are those things? They're different for each of us. So some of the things are daily activities. Some require planning over time, like writing my book. First book I've ever written.
What's it called, by the way?
Well, I have a working title right now. It probably will change a bunch before it's published, but the working title is Dying to Be the World's Best, Reignite Your Heart and Life.
Well, that's good because I was going to yell at you because it's not on your website, and I was going to be mad.
I'm targeting getting it done in August, and hopefully doing a book release party on August 23rd at the same location. 1 year.
Oh, that's crazy. That would be great. By the way, you have to promise me right now, and we'll have it on video and audio that you're going to come back when that book is published.
I'd love to. Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah.
Because it is really important. And Rochelle is so great. She's got 40 years to get to be my age. And she tells me that as long as I am active and doing what I love, that I'm not going to go until I'm ready to go. And I'm not ready to go yet. And you you've got good genes. Your daddy is 90 something. And so you've got 40 years. So you've got 2,000 weeks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe,
But at the end of the day, to my way of thinking, and I love your opinion, to my way of thinking, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. As long as you're living every day with, I said this earlier, I'll say it on the air, living every day with gusto and with a strong
Purpose.
desire to keep going, there's gusto and purpose, that you will age less, you will feel better, you'll impact humanity more, and you'll be here for as long as you choose to be, until a certain point in time. But I really think that that's important, and your work is being the world's best at whoever you are, doing whatever it is that you want to do, is so important. Rochelle, what do you think?
I think it's phenomenal. You are a living legacy. Like I bet I bet what it would be like to have somebody so younger come to you and have this conversation about all these things they're stressed about and what they care about at the time and what your perspective would be and something you would tell them. So I know we need to take a quick break real quick, but when we come back, that's what I'd like to ask you is
Oh,
if
perfect.
somebody younger were to come to you at any age, it could be whatever, but if you had to envision a conversation with somebody to kind of lay out the perspective you had to input into their mind, what would you say? So we'll be right back. We're with Kevin, of course, myself, and Sig, and don't go anywhere because I know you want the answer to that question.
And Rochelle is starting to scare me.
When the game is on the line, championship teams know the game plan. They communicate and work together to win. We all need a game plan to protect ourselves online. Talk to family and friends so they know how to stay safe too. Create strong passwords, turn on multi-factor authentication, update software, and recognize and report phishing, because online safety is not something you want to fumble. Get more game-winning tips at CISA.gov/secure our world. Then share them with family and friends.
Hey, yeah, get it, Sig.
And welcome back to Positive Talk. I gotta tell you, Sig, Rochelle's been with me for about a year. She is becoming a professional broadcaster, which is why it scares me, because I'm just not. But anyway, Rochelle, you wanted to ask that question. Go ahead.
Yes, and I would love to just I want to envision it through however you're able to explain it, but pick somebody at a specific age and maybe some worries or things that they're having. They come to you and they got this, they got that, and what you would tell them in any situation as to where your perspective now is from where it was before this happened to you.
Yeah. So real world event. I can speak to this because this happened as I was probably about 2 months after my cardiac arrest. I'm trying to I put together most of the pieces as to why I'm here. This is the world. You are the world's best. But it wasn't totally there yet. And so I had been teaching at that time for about 2.5 years at Foss Swim School. They've got about 30 swimming locations here in the Twin Cities. And for me, that was a passion to give back. Swimming meant so much for me growing up. So the location I was at in Maple Grove, Minnesota, has 40 to 50 teachers. And we had a team meeting, which occurs at 9:00 at night, because that's when the pool's closed. So all the workers get together 9:00 at night. It was my first time being back. It's the first time people seeing. We heard about what happened to you, but yeah, you look like you're going to be okay. I asked the gal Jenna, who runs that pool, if I could talk to everyone, just spend 10, 15 minutes sharing my experience. And she didn't know exactly what I was going to say. She knew I'd had the cardiac arrest. She said, sure, that'd be great. And the makeup of that group is, there's a handful of people in the 50 plus club like myself. There's a few people sort of, 30-ish with family. And then the majority of the employees are probably 18 to 25. The majority of the employees. So I'm telling my story just like I have today in a more abbreviated version. And when I finished with this idea of 1,000 weeks, and I actually said, I'm not really sure why I'm still here. I'm still searching for my new mission.
Mm-hmm.
One of the gals who'd been working there 6 years, part of the 50 plus club like me, came up to me afterwards and she said, Sig, I know why you're here. And I said, that's great. Tell me. And she said, you're here to make a difference in people's lives and help them be the world's best version of themselves. Exactly like you did tonight through speaking and coaching and mentoring. When I was finishing my speech, there was a group of people that had tears in their eyes. They were crying as they heard my speech. Afterwards, there were people that came up to me and they said, thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that story. You know, my father had a heart attack 2 years ago. My mom had an event six months ago. It helps make it easier for me to deal with those things, hearing your story. And finally, there were a few people that came up and said to me, and these were some of the younger folks, thank you so much for sharing your story. I'm changing my life starting today because I don't know if I have a day, a week, or 60 more years. So I'm going to start having greater urgency and purpose and having gratitude. Gratitude is something I talk about a lot, the gratitude attitude and being appreciative and grateful. Gratitude is meant to be shared. It's meant to be shared. And so these people that came up to me at the end and said that, they were saying it to themselves, what my message would have been. Live life with a purpose. Live it with some urgency. Find your passion, find your mission, and get after it. Go all in on that. And along the way, and this is a great thing we do at FOSS, play. Play feeds the soul. We all play in different ways, but play heals the heart. Play feeds the soul. So make sure you do that.
I got to ask you, Sig, would you have said these before the event?
No. I've had a lot of people say, it's amazing how vulnerable you are and willing to share your story. That was not me before. I was much more of a private person. I certainly didn't have the mission that I have now, or passion. So no.
Well, I can only tell you. And by the way, I have one of our friend Gowdy is saying vitamin G is the most important vitamin.
I'll have to look into
anything.
I'm going to look at the impact of vitamin G on the heart. Is that gratitude?
That's my dad. I've got to shout him out. And he has actually changed everything about his mental changed, and then everything he involved. And anytime I'm like, Dad, this is what's going on. You need this vitamin. You need to eat that thing. You need to do this. So I haven't heard of the vitamin G, but I hope it helps you, Sig.
Well, vitamin G is gratitude. Gratitude. Yeah.
Oh, how cute. Me, I'm all gullible. I'm like, what's vitamin G?
I didn't pick up on it right away, but it might make the book now. Vitamin G. I love it.
That is so cute. You know, my dad's probably in his truck. He's like, oh, yeah, look at me. That is so cute.
And Sig, I just want to tell you that my epiphany came when I was 42, that I wanted to, why am I here and what am I here to do, which led me down a long road, which has led me to today. And I got to tell you, I'm thoroughly, just totally impressed with you and your mission. It is the mission of a lifetime. And it's the adventure that you're going to have that's going to impact not hundreds, not thousands, but millions.
I agree.
I certainly hope so. And, Kevin and Rochelle, the work that you do in this podcast is pretty remarkable. The world can use positivity, right? I talked about how many negative thoughts we have in a day. The world can use positivity. And the two of you doing this, right? You are the world's best for doing this for your listeners. And And I hope more people continue to tune in and hear your message.
Well, and the reason that they're tuning in, Sig, is to hear your message, which is why we wanted to have you on the show, because your message is so important, and you are living proof that even when you die, it's not the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you're leaving behind a legacy that is unheard of. Like, I think what's racking my brain is you may have not remembered the 8 seconds and then the 2 days or following, but you remember everything prior. You got to have those memories a few days following after that,
Wow.
up until
Yeah.
and the fact that you can speak, you can use your body, you can walk, you can communicate, you have your emotions. It was like everything. I love how I get kind of why you relate it to it being something in a different way or a different sense of somebody else's life, because it wasn't just this huge thing that stopped you. It was literally like a pause, a moment in time where everything kind of stopped and you came out the other side as yourself, but so much more. And that's exactly what we're trying to pass on, is you don't have to be just you. You can be all of you.
Yeah.
And I just want to share this with our audience. You have it on your website, but it bears repeating, because the reason that you came out on the other side and gained your memory back, 8% of people that have had a sudden cardiac arrest come back from it. And the odds of being mentally 100% are less than 1 in 100. And the reason that all of that has worked for you, because this, did you ever watch Back to the Future?
Sure.
This is your destiny.
I love it.
And this is what you're supposed to do. And we, as I can tell you this, that we wholeheartedly support you in anything, and you're welcome on this show whenever you want to come back and talk to us.
Well, thanks so much. It was really a pleasure to be here. And I'll say it again. You two are the world's best.
Thank you.
And I'm going to remember that.
Yes.
Go to his website, betheworldsbest.com, and read his story. He's got a blog. He's got inspirational things and all the stuff. And if you want to schedule a discovery call with him, that's how you do it. If you want him to come speak at to your group and to make them cry, just make sure you got lots of tissues available. That's all.
Hey, that would be a good message for a wedding. Like, can we just remember why we're here and what we're about to set ourselves into every single day of this? That could be phenomenal. But before we go, we have such a short time left. Sig, is there anything that you would like to share with our audience to take with them?
Yeah. Well, I had a literal heart-stopping moment, and it doesn't happen to everyone the same way, but we all have heart-stopping moments, and it's what we do with them that matters. Our heart is resilient. Our heart is strong. The key is to get back up from whatever that is that gives you pause, right? Those heart-stopping moments make us realize that we're alive. We're alive and we're here for a reason. So get back up, get after it, and go all in.
Very good.
Thank you so much, because in my frame of reference, the only way that you can not succeed is if you quit.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is true.
And so that's so important. Go to his website again, betheworldsbest.com.
Yeah.
And thank you, young man. And I do mean young man because you're younger than me, so I can call you that. So
and another 2,000 week.
Yeah.
That's right. We want to put you back on the show in 1,950 weeks.
Okay.
I promise to be here if you will.
That's a goal. You bet. That's a deal.
Thank you, Rochelle. Thank you, Sig. Have a great day, everybody.
Yep.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Our purpose is to provide everyone with a positive, entertaining, and educational experience. I would love your feedback and comments about the show, including possible topics and great guest suggestions. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro. And remember, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got. That's Kevin